Welcome, everybody, to another Microsoft Unboxed pod. This is episode 51. I'm your host today, Kareem Anderson, and I'm joined by.
David Allen, we are officially past the half century mark. I appreciate you guys tuning in with us this far. Next, we'll hit for the three-quarter century and the whole century.
Yeah, we're just going to keep getting older. That's the way time works, everybody. We have a week of mild Microsoft news, but Microsoft news nonetheless. We are going to be talking about gaming. We're going to be talking about the return of some cons, some handhelds. We're also going to be talking about new support in gaming, which is kind of big news. We're talking about some controversial quantum computing news and I think that might be it. But let me get you the specific headlines just so you know what to kind of expect from this pod. We're talking about Copilot for gaming, Xbox new MVP, and what that means for that section of the intersection of AI and your gaming experience. Stardock has a new update. We're talking about that as well. BlizzCon is going to be returning. We have some thoughts about that. Microsoft's hosting a secret AI event in April 4th, I believe, for details. And we're going to kind of speculate on what that could mean, not only for new features, but Microsoft's direction with AI and its partnerships. We're talking about potential Xbox handheld console maybe showing up in 2027, if not from Microsoft, but maybe from its partners. Fortnite has acknowledged that Windows on ARM is a thing, and it's going to be great for everybody. Microsoft is also being questioned by quantum researchers and scientists about their breakthrough announcement about 2 weeks ago. It's already being put to the test, and a couple of people are saying, not so fast, Microsoft. Your claims are a bit dubious, and we're getting into the details of that. With that being said, I'm going to let you break in our first story.
Yep, I'm going to do what I do best, and I'm going to break into gaming and how Copilot interacts with gaming here. So, this week, Xbox had a podcast, and make sure I get this person's name right. Fatima Kadar, which is let me make sure I get his title correct. Vice President of Gaming AI, sat down at the official podcast to give us our first look at how AI and Copilot, AI and gaming, will be coming together. So if you're an Xbox insider, you're about to get your opportunity to get a look at this. And they wanted to make sure that they separate how AI interacts with your games versus being intrusive with your games. Like, for example, if you're playing a map on, let's say, Final Fantasy, you're playing through Final Fantasy and you need to solve a puzzle or you can't get through a map, the AI could give you a nice little nudge and say, hey, how about over here? How about going to the left? Or if you get stuck and you need to know what spell to use, I'm not a big Final Fantasy RPG type player, but this is kind of where I see it fitting in best, where you need to know what spell to use, what weapon to use, what combination to possibly think about using. AI could jump in there and kind of give you some hints. The reason for this is they want to make it where you're spending less time downloading, you're spending less time researching, you're spending more time playing, and you're locked in the game. The quote that was given was, it's not about AI showing up to help you. It's about AI showing up at the right moment, Kadar elaborated. We really have to think about the experience we've built, and it cannot be intrusive. That quote really stuck out to me. We do not want AI to be intrusive. Now, before I give my opinion, I'm going to kick it to my buddy here. And what do you think about AI coming to gaming? Good thing, bad thing, or don't need it at all?
That's a good question. What I would like to see is that everyone stop using the phrase AI for things that aren't AI. And I believe this is in that realm. This is basically a modified machine learning search platform. It's going to scour, because again, a game has a certain set of parameters that you can play within, storylines that are pre-developed for the most part. Now we're getting some more expansive ones that are kind of doing things on the fly, and we'll see how that works into developers creating or using AI to build worlds on the fly. And then maybe this is where this is going. But currently speaking, hey, you have your story parameters, you have your player parameters, your NPC parameters. There's only a certain amount of things you can do. Now, as a gamer, you're sitting there wondering what can you do in this world because this is your first time run through or whatever, and you're going to say, all right, to your Final Fantasy example, like, hey, how do I do? And I remember this from a story, my own personal experience in Final Fantasy VIII, where the final boss had the person you're supposed to save attached to them, which meant that you couldn't do very much as far as physical attacks because it would hurt the person that was attached to the main boss. So you had to figure out specific spells that only attack the boss that went around the person that's attached to him. Now, that was back then, this is when I was in college, that was about a half hour to an hour worth of investigation. Like, all right, now I got to go online and figure out what am I doing wrong? Because like every attack kept hurting the person. So I would go online, go to YouTube, stuff like that to figure out what other people have done. That's what this is doing, but it's bringing it to your point in game. So people don't have to leave the game itself. They're not leaving the Xbox platform. They're not leaving the console. Microsoft can add to the hours that it's saying that people are playing because, again, instead of saying, all right, well, I paused the game and I left it, or I stopped the game, took a day off, went and researched, came back and played it again. It's now I can just pull it up in game and say, hey, I need to use these spells in order to do it. That's not AI. That's just search. And I feel like that's what's going to be a lot of this that's going to be going on. It's like, all right, what's the best, route to take if I'm going to be trying to, do a speed run? That's not AI. That's just search. What is the best car in Forza that's aerodynamically designed for this specific route? That's not AI. That's research. That's because this information is already out there, and something's going to scour the internet, bring it to you in a UI in the game. So I think it's great to have this thing, but don't call it AI because it's not necessarily AI. It's, Copilot search or whatever they're going to call it search. That's what I would say.
And you hit the nail on the head is exactly the way I feel about it because, for the folks out there that follow us regularly, I'm a simulator player and I play a lot of shooter games as well. And I've always believed that games, to your point, function inside of a box no matter what. And that box may expand and contract at times, but you're still inside that box. Now, if you start playing and this starts interacting with multiplayer games, you're still inside that box because, Call of Duty, for example, is only going to give you so many different ways to kill an enemy. But the box may be more dynamic. So I could see it being called AI in the sense that, you're on a battlefield, it's 8-on-8, and based on weapons you have and based on where this person is and based on where the other, your teammate is, these are your possibilities. But even then, there's that gray area of still being inside that box, and it pulls that somehow from a search engine or from internet content and says, look, here's your options. Those are the things that I want Microsoft to iron out because I have a hard time wrapping my head around AI being beneficial in all games. Like, for example, Madden comes to mind. I played a guy on Madden a few weeks ago that he was playing defense. He could call it. He had played football in the past. He could call out my offense at the line. Okay, that gave the game away. That kind of ruined the experience. So are you telling me that AI is going to start jumping into sports games and say, look, this guy's in a, 4-3 defense with linebacker over here, so you need to run this play. This is how you get 10 yards. To me, that sours the gaming experience. So I think there needs to be a balance here as to where Microsoft allows this to be, what titles they allow it to be in, and what info it allows you to query. If not, gaming kind of becomes ruined at that point. I hate to be that strong in my term, but I could see it becoming ruined at that point. Well, I'm playing this person and they're just going to ask AI this question and it's going to tell them how to beat me. It's kind of like reading the Nintendo Power magazines back in the day where it would, you had the back few pages there that would teach you how to get through, kill the dragon in Mario Brothers. All you had to do was look in the book. It was in there. It kind of feels like that in the same sense.
Yeah, don't disagree with you. So we're going to keep an eye on this, obviously. Hopefully, we'll be able to test it as soon as it's made available for testing for the public. And we will return with our thoughts after we've had some time with it. So again, this is just our speculation on what it could end up being. We have no idea how it's actually going to be implemented and to what extent, as to your point, David. So just bear with us. Let us know what your thoughts are as far as AI being incorporated in games. If you think this is a good idea, if you think it's a bunch of hype still, we would love to hear from you guys. So we're going to move on to our next story, which is going to be more gaming. We're going to keep it light in the first half of this. We got Fortnite. Just came out, announced yesterday, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. And I was reporting on it. They are going to be supporting Snapdragon on Windows. Now, I say that specifically because it's a branding thing, and we've got notes from Snapdragon about this. It's essentially Windows on ARM, but because Snapdragon wants to take most of the credit for it, which, to this extent, I give them that because, this version of the Snapdragon chip has been more successful in garnering support than previous Windows on ARM's efforts. They are saying that it's Fortnite supports Snapdragon on Windows, but for all intents and purposes, effectively speaking, it's supporting Windows on ARM, and it's big. For those of you who are Fortnite fans, this is going to be great. For those of you who may have rushed out and bought Windows Copilot Plus PCs that are run using the Snapdragon chips last year, this is also big because you've had to kind of use some workarounds. You couldn't use BlueStacks because of the way it interacts with certain things. But essentially, again, Epic announced that it's supporting Windows on Snapdragon architecture. The collaboration with Qualcomm addresses compatibility challenges that have previously been in place for Windows on ARM. They will be using a new integrated easy anti-cheat support in order to bring this. That was part of the reason why it was hard to do it the first time around. Is the anti-cheats architecture was essentially designed for Windows PCs or mobile chips specifically, like the Apple chip and things like that. This new one is going to be addressing Windows on ARM as a platform. So that's great. Again, it's more dedicated support, not just some kind of port brought over. This will ensure smoother gaming experience. It opens the doors for other multiplayer games to follow. Again, this is going to be big for Windows on ARM. And again, I think this is one of the more fitting games for it. Again, it's not graphically intense, but it is dependent on fidelity, latency, and a bunch of other things that have kind of tripped up Snapdragon before. Qualcomm's processing featuring Adreno GPUs and hexagons will be the ones that they target. They will also be taking advantage of NPUs to enhance game performance and battery life. So again, playing Fortnite for longer on a cooler system. And it'll again be optimized to leverage additional features going forward. The broad implication for this is, again, you're just seeing Windows on ARM / Snapdragon on Windows gain more support, and we expect to see an updated slew of devices probably May, June-ish, with the more recent or updated Elite chips, which are, again, having more GPU added to them, more cores. So I can only imagine Fortnite playing even better. What are your thoughts on this?
Big deal. You said it. This is a big deal. I think they didn't just pick Fortnite out of the blue. I think this was very smart. Fortnite has been a very popular title for years. It has kind of had lulls and surges, and right now it appears to be in a surge. I've got a nephew who is 11, who is a Fortnite maniac, plays Fortnite 24/7, 365. He knows all the little tricks, and I think this is going to open the door for more games to be Snapdragon compatible, and we're going to start getting the most out of these Snapdragon ARM-powered PCs, because so far we've been looking at them as, let's be honest, they're production machines, productivity. that they do okay with basic video editing. They're not video editing powerhouses, but we have yet to see them unleashed. What can the GPU do? What can they do when something is coded specifically for the ARM CPU? Can they run a Call of Duty at 1080p? Are they capable of that? So I'm happy to see this. For me, this is a big step forward in cost efficient. They are cost efficient PCs being able to be gaming PCs, because I'm going to be honest, Mac has something called CodeWeaver or something like that they use to allow games to be ran on their M1 or M series devices.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this is a place for Snapdragon to kind of jump in and say, hey, we can game too. We're seeing all these integrated graphics we capable. So are the days of a dedicated GPU requirement getting smaller? I think so, and I think this is a step in that direction.
Yeah, goes back to a conversation a couple weeks ago about the divide that NVIDIA is going to be seeing pretty soon, where they are going to be making their GPUs for servers and not worried necessarily about cooling and putting them in or pairing them with desktop PCs, laptops, at least for the most part. They will be ones that you can put into desktops that have efficient cooling already built in, or cooling that you can tweak yourself. And again, focused on more power, which means integrated GPUs, which I think Intel has been focusing on this year in this particular generation. They're supposed to be having a much more powerful integrated GPU with this chip. We're going to see the same thing from Qualcomm. I think that's going to be the trend where, AMD, Intel, Qualcomm are going to beef up their integrated chips, while NVIDIA focuses on servers and AI computing and things that can be massively cooled by the production companies themselves, versus saying, all right, we need to figure out a way to integrate this into a small form factor. We're going to focus on the bigger stuff. And if somebody wants to put it in a desktop, they're more than welcome. That's going to be the divide versus what we've currently had, which was a medium stack where you could buy stuff from NVIDIA, or you could pair it, Microsoft could put it in a laptop, or Asus can put it in a laptop and pair it with these things. I think they're just going to say, all right, we're going to take AMD's integrated stuff, make it cheaper for us, reduce the cross computing between the GPU and the CPU, and just say it's all on the same chip. It's easier to cool. We'll just do it that way. And hopefully we'll see gaming kind of tailor itself towards that. And I think we're seeing that. Now, I say at the end of the day, if this is a step towards bringing Marvel Rivals to Windows on ARM, they will have a hit. That's just me personally. I love that game. I think it's great. I think it's, as much as Fortnite is still a behemoth, I think, Marvel Rivals is one of the newer games that are, making a name for itself, and it would be great to have on these things. Now, again, you can play it via cloud gaming on a Windows on ARM PC, and it's pretty good depending on where your bandwidth is, stuff like that. But it's, it'd be great to say, hey, next season of Marvel Rivals has been tweaked to be performant on this Windows on ARM, just like the Fortnite game is, and have at it, people.
Have you, not to go too far in the left field here, have you played Marvel Rivals via the cloud? How does it play?
I have.
If you've played
Like I said, it plays fine. Now, again, it depends. Cloud gaming is always dependent on your broadband. So there are times at night where I don't see the difference between that and when I play it on my Xbox, when it's downloaded to the hard drive on the Xbox. And then, again, there are times where I play it and I'm like, oh, this is cloud gaming because the graphics just dropped horribly, or the speed at which latency is noticeable, and you're like, all right, I'm dead before I know it, kind of situation. It is all it's still a fun experience. It's a heavy game to download on your system in general, but being able to take my Windows or my Surface Pro 11 or whatever and hook up a controller to that 13-inch screen or whatever and play, it's still very fun. It's a cool experience, and I would love to be able to do it with it being downloaded to the system itself, and not have to worry necessarily about those kind of graphics drops and things like that. So we got another story.
Cool.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be great. We got Stardock if you want to jump on that one.
Yep, I would love to jump on that one. As folks know, I'm a Big fan of the folks over at Stardock. So anytime they release something, you can expect me to talk about it. Stardock does nice little add-ins for Windows and nice little utilities that are very useful. And a lot of times, as you're going to see with this product here, it kind of modifies the way you use and interact with Windows, which is really cool. So for now, we have a beta of Fences 6. That's a fence, like you're thinking of a fence outside. What Fences 6 allows you to do, if you can picture making, some people would call them boxes. I understand why they're called fences, but you can have areas on your desktop where you can separate the things that you're using. For example, you can have a fence set up in the right-hand corner, just have all your streaming stuff. You can have a fence set up in the left-hand corner, just have all your productivity stuff. You can have another fence set up with your documents. You can stack fences on top of each other. It's pretty neat. It's one of those things that's hard to describe here on a podcast, but I want to make sure it gets brought up because it's neat. Check it out. It's really inexpensive right now. The beta, the license is $8.99. When it goes full release, they're going to increase that only by $1. It will be $9.99. So if you're like me and you've got icons all over the place, you do a lot of things with your PC. For example, one of my work PCs that we produce the website here on, I use it for gaming, to test games, to do some streaming. I do have my streaming stuff on one side, my productivity stuff on the other side. And because those fences are there, those icons do not intermingle with each other, so everything stays neat and organized. So go over there, stardock.com. Check out Fences 6, the beta. Get it for $8.99 and leave us some feedback and let me know what you think of it.
Cool. I got nothing more to add to it. I haven't tried it personally, but maybe I will try it this weekend, try it out, and come back with my opinions on it. I use Stardock just for the Start app itself. I've never really explored the other things that they offer. So this could be a fun little weekend experiment.
I'm going to be honest. I use all of their utilities. Just about. I can't think of one that I don't use. I know we talked about multiplicity a few weeks ago, where you can control multiple PCs from one PC. That is a go-to app that I rely on every day, and I just kind of have got everything Stardocked over in a fence on one side, and everything behaves neatly.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm going to take the next story too. This one's going to bring us back around to gaming. This is BlizzCon. I think you wrote about this one, right?
Right. Let's see. BlizzCon, for you Blizzard folks, Warcraft. You know, I know there's Warcraft fans out there. I know there's some in my family that are Warcraft fans. The BlizzCon conference has been MIA here for a couple years. If you remember, COVID, the pandemic, got it for a few years. Then Microsoft and Activision were working out their deals, so we didn't get it last year. This year, we're getting, well, not this year, David, 2026. There we go. We're getting BlizzCon back September the 12th, which is on a Saturday, and Sunday, September the 13th, 2026. This is at the, Anaheim Convention Center in California. Don't know a whole lot about it yet, but as always, you can expect, with it being, 16, 17 months out, I would expect whatever titles Activision Blizzard has coming out, or whatever they're working on, to be hands-on, to be on display. Might see some Call of Duty in there, might see some, World of Warcraft in there. I know that game has kind of made a resurgence. Overwatch is still very popular. Might see some Overwatch in there. So you'll have to check back at our site and check back at blizzard.com for more information on cost, tickets, timing, etc. But BlizzCon is coming back in 2026. And I know you and I talked off mic. This is a little different for Microsoft, a little different about what they're doing here. Microsoft is not known for, this type of conference. So does it surprise you that BlizzCon is coming back?
Definitely. As like I said, I mentioned earlier that it's rare that a company revives something from the dead, seemingly when they don't have to. Again, the stock price for Activision Blizzard didn't really go down, but the loss of BlizzCon, there was no, and I'm not saying that the fans weren't upset about it, but there was no negative repercussions for Activision doing away with BlizzCon, essentially, at least not for the company itself. And the fact that it was gone when Microsoft purchased Activision Blizzard meant that they could probably continue on that same path without incurring any negative consequences for it, at least from the fans or gamers themselves. They could say, hey, when we bought it, it was already gone. You guys seem to have moved on. We're going to move on. It's no cost to us to bring it back. To have it gone. But there is a cost to bringing it back. They got to do marketing. They've got to rent the spaces. They've got to employ people. They've got to set up booths. They got to do a bunch of stuff in order to bring this back, which is why we're saying it's surprising that Microsoft is going out of its way to bring back an in-person event that was already gone, especially when the trend for most companies, most people in gaming, most studios is to do away with these things because they're cost prohibitive to a certain extent. They can get the same amount of coverage just online. So I'm happy. Don't get me wrong. I'm happy to see it back. I'm hoping that more companies find it useful and meaningful, and as far as networking for other developers, a way to acquiesce talent as well to figure out, like, hey, these are other developers coming to see in person and network with each other, and we could poach some of these people in order to make our games even better. You don't necessarily do that when you're just an avatar online. You don't see that kind of stuff. So I'm happy for it. It's interesting that Microsoft's bringing it back. I wonder if they have something in the barrel as far as World of Warcraft is concerned. It's been a while since we've had some big, huge news. Maybe they've got a new update. Maybe there's a new season of something coming out. Maybe something worthy of hosting this event in general, or a plethora, to your point, of all the other games like Overwatch, stuff like that. Maybe they're just going to be adding stuff to these things in order to justify this. Nevertheless, I'm happy when in-person events are being brought back.
That's something I wanted to say. We've kind of seen E3 basically die out. E3 is kind of, gone to the wayside. And I think it's important when we see events like Build and the developers come together, but it's different when gaming is together. In my opinion, I've been to some local gaming events here. I've not been to any of the E3s or the bigger events in the past, but I've been to several local gaming events here, and there's just a different vibe, and there's something these days about being able to interact with a fellow gamer in person versus wearing one of these headsets here, or talking to them via headset. There's just something about it, and you always walk away, or I did, you always walk away feeling good. You feeling pretty positive. And it kind of reinvigorates your desire to just run home and pick up that game and find that new friend you met and bring them into your circle while they're bringing you into their gaming circle. And it's just good for gaming all around.
Yeah, definitely. Speaking of events, we have a new one that just kind of cropped up this week. Microsoft announced that it will be hosting a special AI event. And you might be rolling your eyes saying, oh, here's Microsoft with another AI event where they're going to roll out Copilot and not show us very much. And that could be very well the case. Who knows? But we do know that this is going to coincide with Microsoft's 50th anniversary. So this is a big milestone for the company in general. And this precedes Build. So they're going to need to talk about something new or something that's different than what they're going to be discussing a month later at the developer conference. So we do expect to see high-profile executives there that include Satya Nadella and AI CEO Mustafa Suleyman, and they're going to be talking about probably some of their new in-house AI models as far as innovation is concerned. We do know that Microsoft recently, in the last whenever DeepSeek showed up, about a month, has started integrating some of that technology into Copilot. We know that their Morgana 1 quantum chip is something that they're probably going to figure out a way to weave a story into that and how that's going to help boost their AI learning capabilities beyond what we currently have. We're also expecting them to talk about some of the other partnerships that they have. I wrote this story earlier this week, and this kind of dovetails to another story which we wrote, I think, last week about Mark Benioff, who was saying that Microsoft, he's reacting to a report from the Register that was saying Microsoft is, testing with Twitter, I guess, or X AI, AI platform, Meta's AI platform. They are also, we know that they've rejiggered their contract and agreement with OpenAI to let them kind of use other cloud services in order to train their models, which again still benefits to Microsoft. And Microsoft's working on the small language models. So I expect this event to kind of coalesce all of those headlines, all of that news, and hopefully put it in a direction to show that Microsoft is about to, have a different direction when it comes to AI. And in that direction, it may end up looking more like Apple's vision, where they use their Copilot face, their Copilot brand, to house all these models and allow either the user to switch whichever mode they need, whichever model they need for a specific task. If you want something that's comical, topical, perhaps a bit racist, you can use XAI or Gronk or whatever. If you want something that's more productivity based, you can use Copilot, which again leverages it's a mix of small language models plus OpenAI's ChatGPT. Or if you want something that's more socially engineered, you can use Meta's AI. They'll allow you to kind of do that. Or, to what me and David kind of talked about off the pod, they will be doing some of that switching on their end. They will, assign whatever task is to the model that, for whatever the prompt that you're using. And maybe they'll update, alert you saying, hey, you asked for recipes. So we used Meta because Meta scours its Facebook pages that have, just entire dedicated pages and sections and communities that just do recipes and homemade recipes and recipes from the 70s from a Betty Crocker menu that was no longer printed. We used Meta because that was the best source for it. You wanted information about a sports team. We used XAI because it has a partnership with a bunch of soccer leagues and NFL and things like that. And we brought up topical information based on what's currently happening. Or we used our Copilot model because you wanted to export a macro enabled sheet from Excel and do a bunch of different tweaks with it. That's what we're doing, and that's what we're explaining to you. Or we use DeepSeek because you needed to do something even deeper than that. And then they'll explain it to you. That's what I think this event's going to be. What do you think the event could be about? It could be in a whole different direction.
No, I think you're right on target here because I think we've reached the point where people need more than one. Well, let me rephrase that. Let me back up even a step further. There was a survey done here yesterday on our local news, our new news. I happened to have it playing in the background, and I turned my head when this came up. It said, how many people in this survey use AI on a daily basis? So that, of course, perked my ears up. It was basically a 75% no, a 25% yes. So that kind of, told me right there, okay, not everybody, in the general public is using AI. So I think in order to make all this work and make all the regulatory bodies happy about giving false information or questionable information, if you are switching the model on the background, everybody gets a fair toss. Like you said, recipes. Copilot can give me a recipe, but to your point, the Meta AI engine might be a little better for that because there are dedicated groups and dedicated pages that are nothing but cooking and recipes. So maybe you get better choices, you get better information. And if Microsoft is switching the model, then, that will probably keep some of the regulatory bodies off of them. But if there is a toggle with some basic explanations on the user side, where the user can control what model is used. If you get false information, then as we said off mic, Microsoft can basically say, hey, you chose that model on the front end. We didn't choose that model for you. So we're not at fault for the wrong information that you received and the fact that you were told to cook your pound cake for 2 hours and 25 minutes versus 25 minutes. you know, and it burned, it burned your house down. I mean, what are we, we're not at fault here. So
you should have thought 2 hours is too long for a pound cake. Jesus, people. A little accountability.
It's not even a pound cake.
Told me.
It's not even a pound cake at that point.
No. I don't know what you're baking for 2 hours that long. Jeez.
But
hey,
I think it's a good thing, and I think it makes something we mentioned off mic make sense, because we were talking about it, and I asked, how does the user pay for this? And essentially, guess what? Features are going to be added to Copilot, and your bill is going to go up for Copilot, or your Office 365 bill that recently went up. It's going to go up a few more dollars. You'll probably have this nice toggle on the front end with a little bit of an explanation as to what each model is specified in. Microsoft is helping you make the choice if you don't make one, but it's there kind of for your user control, and I'll say it, their protection too.
Yeah, I think this is also a situation where they're buying time. We've mentioned several times that they're working on small language models, which are more precise. And that's, something that they can do in-house, something, similar to what Google's doing with Gemini. They're going to allow or license these models from these other companies and test them out and incorporate them, all the while training their models, probably on these models as well, in order to leapfrog them and say, all right, we're no longer necessarily dependent on Meta's AI. We've trained our models to find specific cooking stuff. We've trained it to, scour for funny videos, whatever it is that the Meta AI was good for. We've now copied and replicated that. Here's our model version of that. And we're going to move forward with that specifically. And we'll be less dependent on that. Because at the end of the day, again, you want to have the best models that are in-house that save you money and eventually hopefully bring down the cost of Copilot, or at least keep it flat. Who knows? Companies don't like to lower the price of anything, but if the idea is that we borrowed all of these models and we had to increase the cost to $9 extra, it stays at that because now they're able to use their own models and charge themselves for that versus having to expend money to these other companies who are now saying, all right, now we've improved our model, pay us even more for the next model licensing. They say, all right, well, we don't need to borrow yours anymore. Ours is good enough, and we'll just keep our customers at $9, and we'll just keep pouring in our own models. Who knows? But we will obviously be writing about it, keeping you updated. So check the website, check back on the website. I believe it's April 4th, 2025. You could also visit, there's a new website for Microsoft, which is highlighting 50 years worth of milestones and achievements. You can go visit there. You can go visit our site, or you can go visit that site specifically in order to get the URL. Hopefully I'll drop it in the show notes for you guys. But if you want to just be abreast of all the things that are Microsoft that are big known milestones, like the death of Windows Phone, I'm sure that's on the website somewhere, maybe in like the Nixon library, where it's like a dark hallway that nobody really goes down. It could be one of those for you, But either way, visit the site, check our site for more information, and we will report on what the event is on the day it happens. Next one, we got a couple more, and then we'll let you guys go for the weekend. We have an Xbox handheld, I believe, is the next story that you might want to jump into, right, buddy?
Yep, I kind of want to jump into this one. Xbox handheld. We got a little news this week about that, and I'm excited, I'm reserved, and I'm perplexed all at the same time. So Microsoft kind of threw me for a loop here. So word on the street is the handheld is coming, but we're getting two versions, and that's what I'm going to call them for lack of a better way to put it. Two versions of the Xbox handheld. What I'm trying to say is this year we're getting a branded version, supposedly, of an Xbox handheld. And what I mean by that is a Lenovo version of an Xbox branded handheld, an Asus version of an Xbox branded handheld. We don't know what OEM is going to be supporting it just yet, but we are working toward an in-house Microsoft hardware handheld coming in 2027, not 2026. So it's good to see Microsoft finally make a statement that they're moving in that direction. They're going to do something. And I expect the 2025 handheld, we've got 9 months left, roughly 8.5, 9 months left this year. I suspect if it's going to come out this year, it's already well in development, well into testing. Microsoft knows who's making it. They know what it's going to be. And that doesn't mean that when the Xbox-made handheld comes out in 2027, that it will be any different. Microsoft could go to Lenovo. They could go to their OEMs and say, look, these are your specs. Kind of like we talked about off mic for the Copilot PCs. Lenovo has Copilot PCs. Samsung has Copilot PCs. Asus have Copilot PCs. Microsoft didn't make those. They just set the standard for what it takes to be labeled a Copilot PC. And then they said, okay, you can attach the other parts and pieces and special features to your brand to make it all work. Like, for example, if you wanted an OLED screen, if you wanted a 4K webcam, you have the option to do that if you follow the basic specs. And I suspect that may be what happens here with our quote-unquote in-house handheld. I think Microsoft is going to set the specs and let some of the OEM partners run with it, which brings me to something else we have talked about a few times on the pod in our now 51st episode. Does Microsoft continue making gaming hardware at all? There was talk that the new Xbox, Satya Nadella, has already approved the new hardware for whatever we're going to call the next Xbox. But if they're going to farm out the handheld, does this kind of continue to lead us down this road of that they might farm out the console and stick to what we have said 6 or 7 podcasts now, just game development, just software development?
Yeah, I think the answer is a little bit nuanced. I'm going to walk people down this path as quickly as I can so we can get to our last story. But what I see is Microsoft has already approved this last console, this last piece of hardware that sits in the living room, sits in a room that's hard to travel with, this last box, so to speak. And while they're doing that, they're simultaneously testing the waters. If Nintendo's taught us anything, it's that this handheld is the future. I don't see Nintendo going back to a console, at least not a traditional box. They've already announced the Switch 2, saying like, hey, we're going to keep riding the successful wave of mobile content that can dock and give you a very similar experience as a dedicated box would. But for the most part, 80% of the time, you're playing this thing in a car, on a plane, in a waiting room. You're out and about doing this thing. You're playing it more often than you would be if you were sitting at home. And that's a future of gaming, whether it be on your phone, whether it be this particular thing. But don't get me wrong, if you have a great setup at home, you can dock this thing and get that exact same experience. So what I meant to say is that Microsoft is going to be doing that. They're simultaneously building the last box console thing to compete with Sony. But they're going to move towards this. They're going to move towards that. And they're going to make their own. They're doing a reverse Surface experience where they're, instead of saying like, hey, we made the Surface and we'll license out the architecture models that we use to everyone else so they can make their own version, they're saying, you guys do all the testing. You guys do all the stuff. We will give you the specs and what we think is going to be a better experience for Xbox specifically. But you guys have already, put in the R&D. We're going to co-brand this thing. We're going to come out with our own version, 2 years from now. And if it does well, we'll keep making it. If it doesn't, we already have Xbox branded ones out there. Either way, this is the future. We'll just keep working with our partners. We'll try out ours in 2027. If it's a hit, we'll keep making those. We'll make another one in 2029, 2030, whatever the next version is. If it's not a hit, but you guys are still selling this and people still want that experience, we'll just let you guys make the PC version of this, or the gaming version of our PC partnership. You guys go ahead. Dell, you keep Alienware, you guys go ahead and make it. Asus, you guys go ahead and make it. HP, if you want to jump in on this, you go ahead and make it. Like we can redo this whole, PC partnership, but on the gaming side. And we don't have to make it anymore. We don't have to make our own version of this anymore. You guys are killing it. Either way, handhelds are the future. Microsoft will make their version of it. Whether or not they continue to make it is going to be up to how well it's executed. And I think they're building and they're learning from these co-branded versions, these new Xbox ones that will be coming out, saying, hey, it's got to have at least an Xbox button. It's got to have this minimum screen. It's got to have these specs. Whether or not the design itself is a success, that's up to people's particular preferences, and we will learn. We will get all the telemetry from that. What people didn't like about it, the weight, the way that the controller is detached or built in. We'll learn from that, and we'll build our version of it. And if that's a hit, that's where we're going. So I see this being the last box, and handhelds being the future.
Unless I'm gonna throw a little wrench in this, but I think we're done. I'm going to agree with you, but I'm going to put an asterisk on it. Are we done with 4K gaming on the console?
No,
I don't think we're done with 4K gaming on the console, but I don't think console gamers pay the same attention to the 4K 120 hertz type setups. And I think if we're waiting to 2027, that's part of the strategy. I think maybe by 2027, we have a handheld that might be capable of 4K gaming. So therefore you get that option, so that would be the only drawback that I see. I'm sorry to cut you off.
No. I think we're in the same boat. I think, again, these docking situations are for the people who want that, people who can dedicate that time, that effort. They can put that console into this thing and get 4K gaming. They might even be able to get 8K gaming. This is even better because what that allows the handheld itself to do is be the gaming experience and allow you to buy accessories at a much cheaper cost that are docking situations that boost the gameplay. So you don't have to run out and buy a $3,500 graphics card and build your tower with it every time a new graphics card comes out and readjust your cooling system and stuff like that. What you can do is say, hey, I have the base model. I've had it for years. Now I'm going to buy the dock that allows me that enables the 8K gaming for $200, $300, or $500, whatever the dock does. And that'll be the thing I change out. But the handheld itself is the gaming experience that I don't have to change out all the time. And I can take it when I need to grind out stuff. Like, again, this is, instead of saying, say you're going on a road trip, a family road trip, you're a teenager or 20-something, 30-something, maybe even the parent, and you've decided, all right, I've done 5 hours of driving. We're now at the hotel. Everyone's asleep. I want to grind out a couple hours instead of waiting to get back home from whenever the road trip is over to play Call of Duty and get whatever these achievements are. Granted, the fidelity is not that great. Maybe it's on a 2K screen, but I can play a couple hours while everyone's asleep, get that achievement real quick, and keep on with the road trip versus I got to wait till I get home a week from now in order to knock that out. Or the new season just landed and everyone's rushing out to get whatever these new DLCs and skins and stuff are. Instead of waiting for me to go back home and sit down and play it, I can quickly play it real quick on an airplane while I'm traveling, or I can play while I'm visiting a friend, or I'm in the hospital for whatever reason, a multitude of things. I can do it real quick. Now, granted, the fidelity is not as great as it would be at home, but I can get that when I get home. But right now, I just want the experience. I want to play the game. I want to get those achievements. I want to get those DLCs. I want to download it and, whatever, be part of that conversation immediately versus, all right, well, I got to wait until I have a couple hours dedicated for that. And maybe those couple hours never come. Maybe you get home and the baby throws up and you spent an hour and a half cleaning that up. And now you're tired and going to bed. Who knows? But I think, to your point, 4K, 8K, whatever the next version of those, that'll still be an option. But this just allows more accessibility and even more options versus, the more confined. All right, I got to have my setup and I got to wait for it. and I got to do this, and I got to be very, thoughtful in my gaming experience.
I agree
Last,
with you.
yeah, okay.
I was going to say I've been on vacations or been out of town or been out of my house, and I've had these times where I've had a couple hours of downtime when the new season of Call of Duty came out, and it's going to be 3 days before I can get to it. So, you build these things, and if I was to give a little advice, throw a little 5G modem in there. Hint, hint. 5G modem, unlimited data. Come on, we can
I
get
mean,
there.
imagine that is a good idea. Imagine if these things are being sold, subsidized through your carrier as well. If those things would move, you say, hey, you know what? I bought the Asus ROG or whatever Ally subsidized, so I pay $50 a month for this thing, but I also get 5G with it.
Well, Verizon, I don't know about the other carriers, but I know Verizon did something with the Razor one that came out 3 or 4 years ago. If you remember, what was the name of theirs? The Razor something. It was a little horizontal hand. It was a handheld. It was Android powered handheld, and it was like $6 a month with 5G at Verizon. And from what I read, when that first came out, that thing was a very popular device, and it's still up there for sale. So there must be something to that idea.
Here we go. You guys, you hear us, companies? Get with the carriers. Not that I'm a fan of carriers having control of that kind of stuff, but if you want to start pushing stuff, subsidizing it is the best way to get it in people's hands, i.e. the iPhone. Last story we got is Microsoft going back and forth with researchers essentially over the quantum computing announcement. We had, I believe, was it Morjana is the name of this thing? It was announced 2 weeks ago. Microsoft was very titillated with themselves by saying, hey, we made the first quantum computing chip, and we have used some new technology efforts to do it. We're using topoconductor, which is enabling more reliable and scalable qubits for quantum computing. And everyone was like, way to go, Microsoft. And now we're hearing researchers saying, not so fast, Microsoft. What you're doing, we believe this breakthrough that you're announcing is kind of stretching the definitions of what you guys are defining as a breakthrough. I believe, let me make sure I get the details right for this. Microsoft Breakthrough raises several code, and again, we are taking this report from our buddies over at Windows Central, so we advise you guys go read their piece on this for more full details on this. They did a great job writing this up, but I'm bringing it to you through conversation. They are saying Microsoft's breakthrough raises several critical issues, including its topological claims that rely on a paper published in 2023 that uses a different measurement range. The code used in the highlighted paper differs from the one that's used by Microsoft. It's also worth noting that Microsoft altered the topological definition. Those are two big claims that, if you're going to say, hey, we made a breakthrough, but we did it by fudging the numbers or rewording the definition, that brings into question whether or not you even did it. I can say I'm the strongest man alive because I can lift, 6 pounds. And by that definition, that makes me one of the strongest people alive. But that doesn't make me the strongest person alive. However, Microsoft researcher Nyack claims that the highlighted concerns aren't enough to dispute the company's breakthrough. So they're saying, regardless of what you guys are thinking, researchers, it's still a great breakthrough. We did it. We were just, not to the letter the same way that you would define it. The researchers argues that there is no difference between our described protocol or the implemented code. He indicated that that ranges are based on the initial scan described and that the company always analyzes the full data. While responding to theoretical physics lecture Legg's preprint critique of Microsoft's breakthrough, Nyack indicated, quote, there is a century-old scientific process established by the American Physical Society of resolving disputes. Comments and author responses are reviewed by referees in the journal and eventually published for the benefit of readers. We have not been contacted by the PRB, Physical Review Board, editors to respond to Legg's comments. When we are, we will provide an official response. Microsoft has also said, I believe, let me make sure I get the date, to basically go out and prove in person their claims. And I think it's actually next week. Let me see where they're supposed to do it at. Next week at the American Physical Society APS meeting in California, researchers NIAC will basically back up their claims, even though the breakthrough was submitted in March of 2024 and published this year, February 2025. So there's a gap between when it was published, when it was submitted, and how technology's kind of changed since then. So basically, this is all researchers say. A couple of researchers saying, Microsoft, you fudge the numbers, you're kind of smearing the definition in order to make this seem like a breakthrough when it technically isn't. Microsoft saying it's still a breakthrough, even though we may have some old data that we're using in order to classify it. We will prove to you that even though the data or the article that we are basing this on is published about a year ago, it still applies, and they'll prove it next week. So we want to keep you guys abreast on this. We just brought this up because, one, bit of controversy is always good news and entertaining. But two, just to keep everybody aware that, even when you come out with a breakthrough, it still needs to be peer reviewed. And we hope that Microsoft can continue this claim, because, again, I feel like this is going to be a big bet for theirs at Build when they say, hey, we've been talking about quantum computing for the last 7 years. Guess what? We did a great thing. Versus, hey, we've been talking about it for 7 years. We thought we did a great thing. We got to go back to the drawing board. What are your thoughts about Microsoft kind of fudging the numbers in order to get a good headline?
I think that's part of business. You know what it reminded me of while you were sitting there talking? The fine print at the bottom of your car commercial, or the fine print at the bottom of your insurance commercial. Under these conditions, or given the fact that this new Chevrolet vehicle, the payments are only $329 a month. If you read the bottom of the print, well, that came with a $10,000 down payment or whatever the case might be. So under certain conditions, I think Microsoft is absolutely correct. I think, like to your point, we're going to have to prove those conditions, and I'm surprised it made it this far. To be honest, I'm like, why did we have to get into this fudging thing to start with? That's kind of what gets me. Microsoft, you did something good. You did something. We don't know what yet, and I'm assuming we'll find out this week what you did exactly. Your statement was bold. Me, I'm more of a person of, I'm going to tell you what I'm sure of. I'm not going to tell you what my chip might do or what we might have accomplished. So, I question why Microsoft went there in the first place. Why didn't they just tell us, okay, this is what we did. Keep it positive. That way, when you're absolutely sure you took the next step, you've got another positive headline there. I think this kind of threw some negativity in the pot, so to speak.
Yeah, I wonder if they were getting pressured, that external pressure we have no idea about, from either researchers or competing companies, i.e. Google, on the
could be
cusp of a breakthrough. And so they wanted to have that headline that we were the first, and we will figure out a way to shoehorn that in. Again, I'm not saying that they didn't do it, but the idea that they were the first to do this when there doesn't seem to be a mad dash towards accomplishing this goal, to your point, seems very interesting. Well, that's it for news. We're going to get into what we're doing this weekend real quick. Let people know we are more than just Microsoft news. What are you up to?
What am I up to this weekend? Well, we've got 1 of 2 days here. I'm in North Carolina. We've got 1 of 2 days here that's going to be nice. So we're looking at nice weather tomorrow, and then storms and all kinds of good stuff on Sunday. So for me, tomorrow's kind of going to be an outdoor day, maybe. Kind of going to get out and do some things outdoors. Might try some 5G gaming on the go a little bit. And Sunday will most likely be game day. I'm going to sit down, try a little more Delta Force out. I may pick up the Marvel game that you've been talking about. I know we mentioned it off mic. I may try to do some Marvel playing. I do have a Marvel interest like my buddy here, so I may try that out. And I've got to get a streaming setup finalized, so I'm going to be working on that a little bit. I've got some ideas. I'm going to try some things out. You guys will see the ending of that idea, good or bad. I'm going to do some streaming under the Microsoft Unboxed handle on Twitch, so you guys can tell me if I failed miserably, if I succeeded, or as always, give me your opinion. Everybody's got one of those these days. Give it to me. What about you?
I am going to probably not do much gaming. I got some reviews that I need to work on, at least as far as forming my ideas. I've tested out the devices. We have in with us the Lenovo ThinkPad X9. That thing is a beauty. Let me see if I can show it right here on the screen. It is an awesome device.
That's nice.
And I'm going to be writing my review on that. And hopefully have that for you guys first of next week. And then Wednesday was New Comic Book Day, and a bunch of new comics came out. So I haven't had a chance to read them, but I went on and got them in my comic pool. So I'll be reading those, probably drinking some coffee and writing reviews, and then figuring out ways to get more views on our podcast. There are some online courses I'm taking in order to help us, attract and make our podcast more palatable for everybody. So I'll be doing that. I will take a weekend off from gaming just in order to kind of better myself for a little bit. And then I'll be back on the grind probably next week. Where can people reach you if they want to join or get preempted on your streaming schedule?
David PAJ 1978, and I'm going to find me on Blue Sky, please. I have been scrolling the gaming content over there. I have interacted with a few just to kind of get a feel for how the algorithm works over there. If you're a gamer or a content person, Blue Sky seems to be a really good place to be.
Yeah. You can find me at, it says Mindhead1. That was my own Twitter one. You can find me at Happy Hulk on Blue Sky. I am, as you can tell, a fan of the comic community. I've been following some people, been watching that show Invincible, and the community over there has been amazing. You can find me over there talking about comics. I also talk about politics as well, but mostly about comics. And on Threads, I kind of just lurk around for some funny memes, stuff like that. I'm not really active on that. But if you guys want to take a break from social media and don't want to do any of that, you can just watch some of our videos on YouTube, reach out to us on our website. If not, we will see you guys next week at the same time. If you guys want to listen to us on your favorite podcast app, Spotify, iTunes, whatever it may be, we would love to share our attention with you. Until then, enjoy your weekend, go touch grass, have a good time. We will be back next week with more Microsoft news.
Have a good weekend, folks. Thanks for watching, listening.
Skies where spirits fall, in the cloud we stand tall.